Hello, good afternoon, and welcome everyone. My name is Christina Perez, and I am a specialist with Duval County Public Schools Family Engagement Department. I am so happy to have you here this afternoon with us. Just wanted to let you all know before the meeting gets started, this meeting is being recorded and it will be available on the Parent Academy website after it's edited at a later date. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat and they will get answered by the end of the meeting. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our fabulous presenters, Miss Elizabeth Blank, Miss Nicole Dowen, and Miss Madeline Twig.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Good morning, families. My name is Elizabeth Blank. I am the supervisor for elementary mathematics here with Academic Services.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nikki Dowen. I'm the director for K-12 literacy, and we have Ms. Twig.
Hi there, I'm Madeline Twig, and I am the K-5 supervisor for elementary science.
Okay, so without further ado, we want to go ahead and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So on behalf of Academic Services in partnership with Parent Academy, we'd like to go ahead and introduce you to online programs and homework resources for your K-5 student. All right, so a quick look at our agenda for this afternoon. We're going to go ahead and we'll take an in-depth look at how to, first of all, access the blended learning programs that we have here in Duval County. We'll each go by content area and look at the blended learning programs that are available for your student at school and at home. And then we'll finally have an opportunity at the end to recap and for you all to ask any questions that you may have. So some quick community agreements for our time here together. If you don't mind minimizing any distractions, we're doing a great job. We're gonna have our headphones on mute, our mics on mute, and our cameras are off. We're gonna go ahead and keep our cameras off during this presentation for the bandwidth. And then just know this is a learning environment where it is safe not to know. So we welcome any and all questions. Feel free if you want to add those in the chat and we will address those at the end when we get to our Q&A session. So our learning goals for you all today. We hope that by the end of our session here that you understand the importance of utilizing the online learning blended learning platforms to enhance and extend the learning experiences that your students have in ELA, mathematics, and science. So let's go ahead and talk about how do we access blended learning programs while at home. So if you're at home, all of the resources can be found from the main Duval Schools website. And so when you go to duvalschools.org, up at the top, you'll see those three little lines that'll take you to the departments page. And then there's a banner that says students and families. So there's the website, students and families. Well, this is the students and families page that you're looking at now. Once you click on there, and you'll see over in the right-hand column, it says technology. And that first bullet is a direct link to the blended learning pages. So this will have links that you'll see icons for every blended learning platform K through 12 that is available through the district. But we're going to focus on the main ones that your K through 5 student will be using in school and also at home. So once you click on blended learning, here are three main here are our main platforms, I'm sorry, for your three main content areas in elementary school. For reading, we have a program called Lexia that we're about to dive into and learn more about. In mathematics, we have McGraw-Hill's Redbird for our K-5 students, as well as iReady for K-5 students. And in science, your K-5 student will have access to CPOMs. 3 through 5 students have access to Study Island, and our 5th grade students have access to McGraw-Hill Online. So we're going to go ahead and dive in to ELA reading. I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Bowen.
Good afternoon. So as Ms. Blank said, for grades K through 5, the only blended learning platform that ELA has is Lexia Core 5. So we're going to dive into what that platform looks like. So this is, again, our only blended learning platform for students. It provides instruction in 6 areas of reading skills. So you'll see here that it's phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. When students log into blended learning, they will click on the Lexia Core 5 tab, and then that screen will pop up. They'll sign in through their Clever logins. Again, this program proves to accelerate the development of literacy skills for learners of all ability levels. It is 100% fully personalized and adaptive. When students log in, they'll see the dashboard, which is in the upper left corner. It's the beginning and end of a lesson that it shows you here. This dashboard allows students to view their weekly usage and progress within the program. It displays the minutes completed compared to individualized goal determined by their performance. It allows students to monitor the number of units they've completed as they work through each level. Down below, you'll see that there's a warm-up. Each session that a student accesses begins with a warm-up. The purpose of this is to increase automaticity for the previously required skills. Students can choose one of the 2 options, and their goal is to beat the highest score. It roughly takes about a minute for students to complete. The next screen they'll see is their activity menu. Each level that a student is in will have 5 different activities to choose from. They choose the area in which they would like to work in. You'll see an A next to that first little block. It says activity. Students choose the picture to enter an activity focused on a specific skill. Again, it's based on those core 5 foundational skills. You then have your unit meter, which that shows it fills in as the students complete each activity. So it gives them that progress, a visual aspect to their progress. You have their part meter. So this paces students through a level. Students will see that the first part of all activities must be completed before the second part is unlocked. This is to help make sure they're staying on their own level and not working too far ahead before they get that instructional piece. When the activity is complete, a check mark will appear in the place of the completed activity. There are also fun facts, so selectable images will appear on the activity menu to enhance contextual knowledge and increase student engagement. Core 5, the foundation of Core 5, is a 3-step instructional branching. So before students are placed in the standard step, they first take an auto placement. This is just to place students on their ability. Students are originally given instruction in their grade level that they are in. So say you have a 3rd grader, it starts with 3rd grade material. If a student is struggling with that activity that they assign them in the placement, in word recognition, so more of those foundational skills, being able to read words, decode, sound out, and blend. If they're struggling with that, it'll drop them down a level. Then it finds their average level for where they're at in that foundational core part. Once they determine that average level, it'll then give them comprehension questions. Same process will ensue. Are they on grade level for that? It finds that middle ground where students are independently able to work on both word recognition, so our decoding, our breaking apart words, our encoding, writing the words out, and then our comprehension questions as well. Once students are active in the program, this is where that 3-step instructional branching comes into play. The first step is that standard step where every child will be placed in. As long as they are showing that they have passed that level, it keeps them in the standard step. If a student does not pass that activity, it then drops them down into the next one, that guided practice step. That's the blue bar. That's where it gives them, if errors are made, students reach this step and they're provided with scaffolded practice. So it gives them a little bit more instruction in this to help them better understand it. If the student is successful in that step, it then bumps them back up to the standard step. The final step, which is that direct instruction indicated by the yellow bar, is reached by a student if they are making errors in that middle step, that guided practice step. In this direct instruction, it's explicitly taught to student what those skills that they needed to be able to acquire that benchmark. Students then, if they've mastered at the direct instruction, go back to the standard step. If a student goes through this process twice with the same skill, a little red apple will appear at the bottom of their screen. This is an indication for teachers that they need to pull that student for this particular skill and remediate. And then students, once they have that teacher-led instruction, will then go back and complete this step in the program itself. For our homework, students have the ability to access Lexia at home. However, keep in mind that this is a 100% personalized blended learning platform. So each student has their own recommended dosage of time. We ask that students don't go over that extended time or that indicated time that their teachers can let you know because it's based within the platform. More time on the program does not equal success. It's, again, tailored to their individual needs. So if you need to know how often your student should be logging into Lexia, check with your teacher because they can then tell you what their recommended dosage for the program is. The other thing that we ask for home learning is that you check with your child's teacher if they have required home reading or home learning at home for ELA. My recommendation as a mama of a first grader is to always just have your kids read on a nightly basis. Sit down and read with them. My family does 20 minutes before bed. Everybody kind of stops in the house. We sit around in the family room and we each read our own book. Sometimes we read our books to each other, but reading is at the core of everything. We just want them to love to read.
All right, so now let's jump into our elementary mathematics programs. Let's first look at McGraw-Hill Redbird for math. So McGraw-Hill's Redbird is a K-5 personalized learning program. It actually is a companion resource to your child's core or tier 1 instruction, which is McGraw-Hill's Florida Reveal, which through the Redbird program engages students with their daily mathematics instruction and benchmarks. Redbird is designed to build a strong foundation and readiness for algebra. As students interact with their adaptive learning path, they first access Redbird and have a placement test in grades 1 through 5 to find their just right personalized learning pathway. Once they are on their personalized learning pathway, they are able to receive instruction and practice, and it's delivered at a just right level for your student. The amount of instruction they receive, including supports, helps propel their learning forward. If something is more difficult, they will continue to challenge students. If something is harder for students, they will continue to then give additional scaffolds to support them. Another great part of Redbird is that it also uses STEM connections. So we're bringing in science and real-world connections with mathematics through the instruction to show why algebra readiness matters and connects it to the real world. And through their practice and in their application of Redbird, it's also helping to close those gaps and pinpoint any learning gaps that students may have to be able to remediate and also challenge students that are ready for a challenge. So we can look at 3 main highlights about Redbird. First of all, instructional items are responsive. So similar to what we just said, students will receive in-depth instruction on the lesson of focus. Remember, this is at their learning level. So wherever they placed from their placement test, the instruction they will receive will be based off that learning pathway. Students will get on-demand help as they work through the lesson, through instruction and interactive practice throughout, giving those opportunities to correct themselves and propel their learning forward. Redbird also offers expandable item sets. So, as needed, more or less practice items are presented. So for our students that are showing mastery of a concept that they're working on, it's not going to give them that repeated practice It will go ahead and propel them forward to the next concept or the next lesson. Where the students that may be struggling a little bit and need some additional practice, it will provide that additional practice there with them and also provide precursor lessons as needed. Redbird is adaptive, knowing that it changes a student's pathway based off their responses. So teachers are also able to monitor student responses when they look at their reports and see where they could also help to support students in class as well. So when we think about Redbird, it promotes deep understanding of the core concepts of mathematics in grades K through 5 through different modes of learning. So there'll be a lot of representation with direct instruction, with some scaffolds to help students with hints and videos, as well as different ways to apply their knowledge with different item types to get them familiar with that. In grades K through 5, our recommended usage is 30 to 40 minutes per week. Please know that your students are getting some time in class during their centers, also using this. So any additional time at home that students are able to use Redbird will also help propel their learning forward. And finally, if you wanted to get a quick overview of the content that each grade level is exposed to. So remember, this is also relies on where your student placed during their placement test. So if I have a current third grader, but yet in Redbird they placed in second grade, you will see the content they will move through on their way to grade level proficiency. So they would move through wherever they landed based off their placement. They would move through those second grade, then they would get into their third grade skills. Remember, we're helping close gaps that students may have, as well as giving them instruction and support to propel them forward. So that was our Redbird platform, again, K-5. This year, we introduced iReady Math for K through 5 also, but it may look a little bit different than the iReady you may be used to if you've had a first or second grader or an older student that had iReady back in several years ago when we had a district-wide K through 8. So iReady is our new supplemental program that all elementary school students have access to. The first component that most schools have already completed is giving students an iReady diagnostic assessment. This is a progress monitoring assessment that is adaptive for students to see all their gaps and strengths that they currently have, which also helps teachers identify where they can best support students. Students take about a 30 to 45-minute assessment, and then we use that data to help drive differentiated instruction and help support students where they need it. They will also take the diagnostic. They take one in fall, which just happened. They'll take another one mid-year to assess their growth, and then we'll take one at the end of the year to see overall growth. If you would like to get more information, sorry about that, go back. There we go. Sorry about that. So please ask your child's teacher for a copy of their diagnostic report. Please note that some of your students may not have taken it yet, so they have until around the end of September. But never hurts just to go ahead and reach out and say, hey, I would love a copy of my child's diagnostic report so I can help at home and see where my child's strengths are and some areas that I could really focus on at home as well. So that partnership between school and home. This is also a website that you can access once you have your child's diagnostic report, and it has some family-friendly resources for you to better understand this diagnostic report. So if you want to take a snapshot of this, but again, this recording will go live, so you'll also be able to go back and record this. All right, so once your student has taken their diagnostic and the iReady platform understands where they are and where their level of instruction is, you have a couple options this year. If you are familiar with iReady in the past, the one thing that students do not have on iReady is their personalized instructional pathway. So they will no longer have the lessons where it gives some instruction and they practice and they take a quiz. that is going to be what they will find through using Redbird. They'll use that instructional program. iReady is going to help with some other areas. So there are three main things that iReady is going to help them with. One of those being interactive practice. Also, all K-5 students have access to learning games. And then finally, our 2nd through 5th graders have access to Fluency Flight. So this is what their dashboard will look like. And if you notice along that bottom toolbar is where they'll find most of the interactions that they can do through iReady this year. So let's talk about the three main components of iReady they have access to. First, they have interactive practice. So if your child sees a lesson on there, that is because these are teacher assignable targeted practice lessons. They do not offer an instructional piece. So this is really practice that teachers have now assigned to your child because these are skills we've already gone over in the classroom. We've already had some core instruction on this. Your student may have worked through this during center time, or it may be an old skill that we're refreshing or reinforcing through some interactive practice. Remember, if your child doesn't see this, this is just means that your child's teacher has not assigned it at this point. Next, we have learning games. So these are available to all K-5 students. Our recommendation is 20 minutes per week for learning games. And these are the really fun, engaging, interactive games that students can play based off where they placed on their diagnostic. So it's appropriate at their level. It is differentiated based off fluency and how they're doing. It'll kind of get a little bit harder or easier based on how they are responding. But students really love engaging with the learning games, and there's different options they can do to build their skills. And these are really just reinforce some basic skills for some of the harder concepts that they'll get to. And finally, if you have a child that is in 2nd grade through 5th grade, they have the access to Fluency Flight, which is an adaptive game-based fact fluency program. Students really enjoy this. It is fun. They see dragons and they get to collect points, but it practices your 4 main operations of addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. Again, it is reactive and responds to their level from their diagnostic placement. And Fluency Flight actually is only recommended for 8 minutes per day, 4 days a week. So they don't need to be on there for an hour. After 8 minutes, it'll actually close and they won't be able to access Fluency Flight again because we don't want it too much. They can get onto a learning game if they wanted to after their 8 minutes. So let's talk about supporting math homework. First of all, making opportunities to provide blended learning or to provide access to the blended learning programs at home. If you don't have access to your own technology at home, we definitely recommend you reach out to student support services to get one of the laptops that are available for DCPS students. Secondly, allow your students to build ownership of their learning, whether this be through a blended learning online program or maybe even some homework pages that your student's teacher is sending home. But we want them to become independent learners, even from a young kindergarten age up to our 5th graders. So by applying their own knowledge independently before we as families and parents come in to support them. So here are some helpful questions to ask your students as they're doing their homework. So if we allow them to what we like to call productively struggle through things, then we can come in and ask some questions to help guide their understanding and let us know how we can best support them. So if you wanted to take a quick little snap of those questions to make sure you as a family member are asking those correct questions to guide their learning and their understanding of the concepts.
And now we're going to go ahead and look at science for grades K through 5. We're first going to start with the CPALMs for grades K through 5 that is available for all students. CPALMs is an online toolbox of information-vetted resources and interactive tools that helps educators and your students effectively implement teaching standards. It is the state of Florida official source for standards information and course description. So your students all have access to this. You can log in as a parent and have access to this. And then your students can actually log in through blended learning as well and have access to the other options, such as original tutorials. With these tutorials, your students are going to watch a quick video that will go over all of the science vocabulary based on the standard that they selected. They also have educational games the students can play while they're working on the content and answering different questions based on, again, on the standard. And then virtual manipulatives that they can utilize based on the standard. So for example, if they're learning about tools, science tools, they'll have those virtual manipulatives available for the students. They also have a presentation slideshow, which is great, especially for you parents. If you'd like to review this content with your students, it can take you through the different aspects and pinpoint different vocabulary that you need to review with your students based on the standard. They also have video, audio, and animation. Again, not for every single standard will you find these resources, but this is something that you can utilize. It's also bringing in those science experiences into the classroom. For example, it's really hard to get hands-on when you're talking about space. This gives you the opportunities and the resources that you can bring into your home to really dive deeper into those standards that we really can't have at our fingertips. Next is Study Island for grades 3 through 5. This is again available through blended learning. This is a K-12 state standard aligned practice. It's based on test prep and also assessments to advance grade level proficiency in math, ELL, and science and social studies, and building test confidence for all learners. What the students will see is if they sign in, the teachers can go ahead and assign them specific lessons. The students will read those lessons, really get those vocabulary. It even has the tools to be read to the students. So if you're not available to help your student who maybe needs that accommodation, the tool will provide the resource for the students to have it read to them. And then after that, they'll be able to do a practice. They'll have things like science content, text lessons. They also have SSA style question practice, which is great because your students are taking an SSA test at the end of the year in grade 5. They also have district tests that they're taking in grades 3, 4, and 5, specifically the EOCs for 3 through 4, which are SSA styled. They also have flashcards, which is a great way for you to actually utilize. You can print these out and work on these at home, or they can be digital. And they have printable worksheets, so you can print these again out at home, or they can go ahead and utilize them in the platform themselves. Last is our McGraw-Hill Online. So grades K through 5 are going to have the books for the in the classrooms. They'll actually have the consumable books, but only 5th grade students will have access to the online available resources. When they sign in through blended learning, they'll be able to utilize the student ebook. We also even have that in Spanish for our ELL students who need that. There are also different translation resources and tools in there to help your student. So if they forget their book at home and they need to access it for vocabulary or homework, that is available. They do have some digital lessons that your student can work on that they can just go ahead and they doesn't need to be assigned to them. They have online assessments that do need to be assigned to them, but they're great for practice. They're a little bit lower level, so they're not SSA style, but it will give the students that content identifying level 3 support they need. And of course, they'll have those consumable textbooks in K through 4 only. And then some science K-5 home learning suggestions. Of course, we always want to check with our student's teacher or the school regarding their home learning and their policies, but please provide the students the practice and science content using those blended resources that we just went over. Also, you might see things like fluency packets that your students may bring home, or you can even use that virtual ebook to go through and practice some vocabulary or even do unit reviews. Okay, we're going to wrap it up and just kind of go over a summary of what we talked about. So let's recap. The benefits of blended learning allows students to visualize and represent concepts. Also helps students to make the connection from the conceptual to the abstract part of learning. It supports coherency of concepts across the grade levels. All right, and so just a reminder of those blended learning programs. For ELA, you're going to have the Lexia Core 5 for grades K through 5. And for math blended learning, you're going to have McGraw-Hill K-5, McGraw-Hill's Redbird Math, as well as the iReady for grades K through 5. And finally, for science, you're going to have Study Island for grades 3 through 5, as well as McGraw-Hill for just grade 5, that it's going to be online. Reminder that K through 4 has the textbooks, and then CPOMs for grades K through 5. All right, and at this point, we've reached the end, and we're going to talk about questions and answers. But before we get to that, I do want to just make sure you get our contact information, and then we can jump into questions. All three of our contact information is available right here. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we will go ahead and pause for questions. I noticed some of you put things in the chat, so if you feel more comfortable doing that, please go ahead and put those questions in the chat, and we will hang on for a bit.
And I have gone ahead and given everyone access to their mics if they do want to raise their hand and ask a question, unmute and ask a question, that's fine as well.
Hi, Ms. Bolden. I see your question is, do we have resources for VPK? Through our departments, we do not. It starts kindergarten through 5th grade, but I would definitely recommend you reach out to your child's teacher to see if there is something that VPK is using or some recommended websites that they would offer you to extend the learning they're doing in VPK.
Yes, Miss Michelle, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so like the program they used last year was like on a timer when she was using it. And so I didn't know if it took that into account if she just decided she didn't want to do it and just let the timer run out. Does that affect like what grade level or like what level it puts them on?
It does not for a reading. So for Lexia Core 5, it's not based on time. It's if they've passed the units within the level. And so typically each unit's about 5 minutes because it's not the time on there, it's the work they're doing within those units. So the way the Lexia works for time on for students, it's based on their placement. And so students that are showing on grade level typically only need 15 to 20 minutes per week on that. And so they'll typically get that in the classroom based on their centers, just like they would for math and science. Then for those that are maybe just below, they tend to have 30 to 45 minutes. And then those that are showing a couple grade levels below will have the longer time. So again, that's when I would reach out to my child's teacher. They're currently in the process. All students are taking the placement for it right now. It is the window is open until the 26th of September. So keep in mind, they also had state assessment starting and things like that. So each school has kind of prioritized which assessment they're giving to begin with. With Lexia, again, it's a placement, not really an assessment. It just kind of gives them activities to show whether or not they're on their grade level, and then it adjusts based on their usage of the program. So again, if they're passing those levels, it'll move them, passing those units, I'm sorry, it'll move them up in levels. And so the levels correspond to grade levels. So again, it's not time on the program like they had last year, I believe. I mean, my kindergartner last year was like 15 minutes for Waterford. That's not, and it would stop them at that time. That's not how they're doing that this year with Lexia Core.
Okay, yeah, she had Waterford last year.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then, so I'm trying to look through the chat to make sure. So teachers haven't mentioned Lexia to us. So they don't need to create any login or anything like that for students. Again, it's shared through Clever, which is our single sign-in. So what we shared at the beginning of the presentation was that students log in through blended learning. Each school has access to it. Again, they're currently working on that placement. And so until all students finish their placement, if your student hasn't taken that placement, they won't have necessarily access, so to speak, to the program because it places them within a level, and then those activities on those levels show up for them. So again, it's once they finish that placement, and they have until the 26th to do that. Checking your progress. So when your student logs in to Lexia, it can then it'll show the student where they're at, and you can see based on that where their progress is based on those bars that were back, and again, it's in the presentation, it shows that activity screen and it shows where they're at within those levels and units. And yes, this will help our kids with subjects that they're struggling in. So because I can speak for ELA right now, but Lexia Core 5 is purely 100% student driven and on their level. So if a student is showing gaps in those foundational skills, it'll provide that instruction and that remediation for that. And if they're still struggling with it, that's when it notifies the teacher, hey, on top of your small groups that you have, maybe re-pull this student because they're struggling in decoding CVC words, or they're struggling with main idea and key details. And it'll help prompt the teacher too. Like it's another data point for them, but it gives students as well that direct scaffolded instruction based on how they perform on that standard step. And I think there's another hand raised. Oh, nope, did it go down? Hold on. Yes, Miss Shaw. Sorry, I can't, the names aren't showing up. So Miss Shaw?
Uh, a quick question. Not sure if you already covered this, but wanted to check if so the kids also access this at home and at the school as well, right? So would they
Yes.
continue when so let's say someone accessed at home and then they continue at the school, will they continue from where they left,
Yes.
or how does it work?
Yes, so for both math and ELA and science, or all three, it will pick up where they left off.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, but I would check with your child's teacher because some teachers don't assign it for homework because of where they're at within their lessons. They don't necessarily want them to move too far ahead or things like that. And like I said, especially with Lexia, the amount of time that each student gets is differentiated based on their placement and their progress. So just double check with your child's teacher how often they want you to sign on at home.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ms. Bolden, I see that you've asked the question, can students check their own progress during these programs? That is absolutely for math. When they are on Redbird program, there is a little calendar that comes up where they can see the lessons they've completed or time they've spent, and they can also just track their progress through the lessons.
For science, specifically with Study Island for grades 3 through 5, the students will be earning things like blue ribbons. So that will actually let them know how many attempts they've done as well as the percentage correct. Any last minute questions before we move on?
For those that are just joining us or joined a little bit late, just know that this recording from the beginning will be uploaded after it is edited a little bit. It will be uploaded to the Parent Academy website. So if you did miss anything from the beginning, just know you will have access to this full recording, which will go through the presentation for any slides you may have missed as well.
How do we access the Parent Academy website?
Ms. Perez, do you want to address that? There we go.
Yeah, I just went ahead and dropped it in the chat. And it'll be under a button that says recent recordings. I would give it about a week or two and to be edited, and then it'll be posted there. I'm also going to drop our YouTube channel.
That looks like Miss Granger. Do you have a question too? I see another hand raised if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And if you have any other questions, our contact information again is on the screen. So please feel free to reach out with any follow-up questions, especially if you came in late and you have questions later.
Yes, thank you all
for
for
joining
joining
us.
us this afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Ms. Perez, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right, it looks like Ms. Perez has left the meeting, and that could be an internet issue as well. So usually we wrap this up. So if you have any final thoughts or questions, feel free to drop those in. But again, we want to thank you on behalf of Academic Services in partnership with the Parent Academy. We want to thank you for spending this time with us this afternoon to go over the online programs and homework support for your K through 5 students. Thank you all.